Amina woke up that morning with a flutter of excitement in her chest. It was her birthday, and she had imagined it would be full of laughter, surprises, and warm hugs from her family. She thought of colorful balloons, a beautiful cake, and maybe even a dress that made her feel special. Her heart raced as she rushed downstairs, her eyes bright with hope. Her mother stood by the living room, holding a small, folded package. Amina's smile faltered when she saw what was inside. It was a plain, cheap dress, barely worth $10. Her mother smiled awkwardly, as if hoping the gesture would seem thoughtful, while her father and siblings looked away, pretending everything was normal. A wave of embarrassment and hurt washed over Amina, but she swallowed it. She didn't want to ruin the moment, so she forced a small, polite smile, tucking the disappointment deep inside. As the family tried to take cheerful photos, Amina felt invisible. She noticed the tiny smirk on her mother's face, a subtle hint that this was all meant to remind her of her place. Her younger siblings didn't seem to notice or care, but the sting of being undervalued pressed on her heart. She loved her family, yet she felt a sharp divide between her dreams and the reality of their indifference. For the first time, she wondered if anyone would ever truly see her worth. Little did she know, this morning of humiliation was just the calm before a storm that would change her life forever. Amina tried to keep a smile on her face as her family gathered around for photos, but the weight of embarrassment pressed down on her. The cheap dress she had been given felt like a spotlight on her inadequacy. Her mother adjusted the hem for her with a smirk that barely hid amusement, and Amina could feel the judgment in her gaze. It was subtle, but it cut deeper than any harsh words could. Her younger siblings chattered and laughed, completely indifferent to her feelings, and the sight of their carefree happiness made Amina feel even smaller. Through the open windows, she noticed neighbors peeking in, their curious eyes lingering on the modest dress. Some whispered, and she could sense their unspoken thoughts, the way they subtly measured her against other girls her age. The tiny comments, the sideways glances, all of it combined to make her feel invisible and exposed at the same time. Every smile she forced felt heavier, every laugh more hollow. The living room, usually warm and familiar, now felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in to mock her. After the pictures were taken and the brief chatter of celebration faded, Amina quietly excused herself. She moved through the hallway, feeling every step echo like a reminder that she didn't belong in the spotlight her mother pretended to shine on her. Inside her room, she let the door close softly behind her, shutting out the world that seemed to judge her for her smallness. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she traced the folds of the cheap dress in her hand, a mix of disappointment and anger swelling in her chest. She thought about all the birthdays before, the times she had tried to stand out or ask for just a little recognition, and the countless moments her family had overlooked her. Each memory added weight to her current feeling of invisibility. "Will they ever take me seriously?" she whispered to herself, her voice barely above the quiet hum of the house. She felt a sharp ache, not just for the dress, but for the countless times her dreams and efforts had been dismissed. Tears threatened to spill, but she held them back. Amina had always been taught to keep her emotions in check, to endure quietly, but this time the silence tasted bitter. She pressed her palms to her face, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and simmering resolve. Deep inside, a small spark flickered, whispering that her worth wasn't determined by her mother's approval, by her family's judgment, or by a $10 dress. Something bigger, something she couldn't yet see, was waiting for her, and the humiliation she felt now, painful as it was, would become the fuel for her transformation. She looked out the window, watching the sun reflect softly on the quiet street, and for the first time that morning, she allowed herself a small, secret smile. This silence, this humiliation, was not the end of her story. It was just the beginning. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a question took root, sharp and determined. What if today's embarrassment became tomorrow's triumph? Amina was sitting on her bed, staring at the cheap dress in her hands, when a sharp knock at the door made her jump. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially not today. Hesitant, she rose and opened the door, and her eyes widened in surprise. Standing there was a man dressed in a crisp black suit, perfectly polished shoes, and white gloves. He carried himself with calm authority, and in his hand was a large, cream-colored envelope with her name neatly written on. "Miss Amina?" the man asked politely, his voice smooth and respectful. "This is for you." Amina's heart raced. She took the envelope with trembling hand. There was no return address, no note except her name. Her mind spun with questions. Who could possibly send her something like that? Was it a mistake? Her family had never gone out of their way to make her feel special. Yet here was a man, standing outside her door, waiting just for her. The chauffeur gave a small, polite bow. "Please, miss, you are requested to follow me," he said, gesturing toward a sleek black car parked outside. There was no hint of urgency, yet his presence carried weight, a silent insistence that left no room for refusal. Amina felt a strange mixture of fear and curiosity. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was it a prank? Was it someone trying to embarrass her further? Or could this really be something extraordinary? Her legs felt heavy as she stepped closer to the car, but her curiosity overcame her hesitation. The envelope felt almost like a key in her hands, a key to a world she had never known existed. She opened it slowly, half expecting a card or a note that would explain everything. Inside was a single folded letter, written in elegant handwriting. It spoke of opportunity, recognition, and potential that someone had quietly noticed for years: her talents, her intelligence, her kindness. Amina blinked rapidly, barely able to process the words. Someone had seen her, really seen her, even when her own family had ignored or belittled her. The chauffeur, patient and respectful, extended his hand. "Miss Amina, shall we go?" he asked again, and this time she nodded, heart pounding in a mix of fear, disbelief, and excitement. Every step toward the car felt surreal, like walking through a dream she hadn't dared to imagine. The streets she knew so well, the modest homes, the familiar shops, blurred past as the car pulled away. Amina pressed her hand to her chest, feeling a thrill she had never known. Her mind flashed back to the morning, the cheap dress, the subtle smirk, the whispered judgment. And now, just hours later, someone, completely unknown, was giving her a chance at a life she had never even imagined. Fear and excitement danced together inside her, but beneath it all, a spark of hope ignited. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change in ways she could never have dreamed. The car moved smoothly through the streets, the city buzzing outside, while inside, Amina's mind raced with anticipation. Who had sent her this? What awaited her at the end of this journey? She pressed the envelope close to her chest, feeling the weight of possibility in her hands. Today, she realized, her story was no longer hers alone. It had suddenly become something bigger, mysterious, and full of promise. And deep down, she felt a quiet thrill. This was only the beginning. Amina sank into the soft, leather seat of the car, her fingers brushing over the smooth, polished surfaces. The smell of fresh leather and the faint hint of perfume filled the air, making her feel as if she had stepped into a world completely different from her own. She looked out the window at her familiar neighborhood, the modest houses and narrow streets, and felt a strange mixture of sadness and excitement. This was the world she had always known, yet it felt like she was leaving it behind, even if only for a while. The chauffeur closed the door gently and slid into the driver's seat, his movements precise and calm. He didn't speak unless necessary, but every gesture showed respect and attention. Amina noticed the small details: the perfectly folded napkin in the cup holder, the faint scent of flowers on the dashboard, even the quiet hum of the engine that seemed to promise smooth, endless possibilities. She had never been in a car like this before. Every detail screamed wealth and care, and she realized she had never imagined life could feel so different. As the car moved through the streets, Amina's mind raced with questions. Who had arranged this? Why her? She thought of her morning, the cheap dress, the smirks, the quiet humiliation, and felt a surge of emotion. This surprise was the opposite of everything she had expected. Was it someone who had seen her struggle, who had quietly watched her grow and hoped to give her a chance she deserved? The idea made her heart beat faster. She imagined possibilities: a wealthy relative she didn't know, a kind stranger who believed in her potential, or even someone from her past wanting to give her a life-changing opportunity. The streets began to change as the car left the familiar behind. Tall buildings rose around them, the roads widened, and the scenery became cleaner, more orderly, almost unreal in its perfection. Amina pressed her forehead against the glass, watching the world transform outside, feeling a strange thrill of anticipation. Each passing moment seemed to stretch, making the journey feel longer, more suspenseful. She could feel her pulse quicken with every turn, every quiet hum of the engine. Her fingers toyed nervously with the envelope still in her lap. She had read the letter again and again, but the words now seemed to take on new meaning with every mile. Someone had believed in her, truly believed, even when her own family had doubted her. The thought made her eyes sting with unshed tears, but she held them back, trying to stay composed. This was not the time to cry. This was a moment to absorb, to feel, to imagine the life that might be waiting for her. Amina leaned back in her seat, letting the leather cradle her, and let her mind wander. She pictured the mansion she might see, the rooms filled with light, the gardens she could walk through, the people she might meet. She imagined her life changing in ways she had never dared to hope for: education, freedom, respect, opportunities she had only dreamed about in secret. A thrill of fear mixed with excitement, but beneath it all, a quiet certainty began to grow. Whatever awaited her at the end of this journey, it was the beginning of something bigger, something she had earned through patience, resilience, and quiet strength. The city blurred past, but Amina barely noticed. Her thoughts were elsewhere, spinning possibilities and imagining a future where she was seen, valued, and recognized. And as the car drove on, smooth and silent, she realized one thing clearly. Her life was about to change forever, and this journey, no matter how long or mysterious, was only the start of a story far greater than she had ever imagined. The car slowed as it approached a long, tree-lined driveway, and Amina's breath caught in her throat. At the end of the path stood a mansion so magnificent it seemed to belong in a storybook. The sun glinted off marble pillars, and water sparkled in the fountains that danced gracefully in front of the house. Lush gardens stretched as far as she could see, blooming with colors so vibrant they almost hurt her eyes. A fleet of luxury cars was parked neatly along the driveway, each one more impressive than the last. Amina felt like she had stepped into another world entirely, a world she had never dared to imagine. She pressed her hand against the car door, unable to hide the awe in her eyes. Her modest neighborhood, the small house, the quiet streets, all of it felt like a lifetime away. The contrast was so sharp that it made her heart race, mixing excitement with disbelief. Could this really be for her? Could she, a girl who had spent every birthday hoping for a little recognition, really belong in a place like this? The thought made her chest tighten, a blend of fear and exhilaration she had never felt before. The chauffeur stepped out first, opening the door with a polite bow. "Miss Amina, welcome," he said. His calm voice did little to prepare her for what she was about to see inside. Amina stepped out carefully, her eyes taking in every detail. The perfectly trimmed hedges, the sparkling fountains, the gleaming marble steps leading up to the enormous doors. She felt a flutter of nerves as she walked toward them, her shoes making soft sounds against the polished stone. When the doors opened, Amina was greeted by an interior more stunning than she had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, reflecting light that made the rooms shimmer like they were filled with magic. Rich carpets ran along the floors and elegant furniture filled the space, each piece carefully chosen and perfectly placed. There was a quiet grandeur to everything, a sense that this was not just wealth, but careful, deliberate beauty. As she walked further in, her thoughts raced. She thought of her mother, who had given her that cheap $10 dress earlier that morning, and of her family, who had barely noticed her struggles. She imagined their faces if they could see her now, stepping into a life so far beyond what they had ever provided or dreamed of for her. A smile tugged at her lips despite the shock and nerve. For the first time, she felt a sense of power, of belonging in a world that had always seemed out of reach. Her mind wandered to the possibilities this place represented: opportunities, education, freedom, and respect she had never received at home. Each step through the grand hallways, past the sparkling staircases and elegant rooms, made her realize just how far she had come, even before she knew who had arranged this for her. The realization filled her with a mix of gratitude, hope, and determination. Standing there, surrounded by wealth and beauty she had only dreamed of, Amina took a deep breath. This mansion was more than just a building. It was a symbol of the life that could be hers, the life where she would finally be seen and valued. Her heart pounded with anticipation for what was to come, knowing that soon, everything her family had taken for granted, her talent, her potential, her worth, would be impossible to ignore. Today, she thought, marked the beginning of her true story, and the world she had always imagined was waiting for her to step fully into it. Amina stepped further into the mansion, her eyes wide as she took in every detail. The walls were lined with elegant paintings, and soft music floated through the air, gentle yet powerful. She felt like she had entered a dream she didn't deserve, yet somehow here she was. Just as she was trying to take it all in, a tall man appeared from the shadows of a grand hallway. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his presence calm but commanding. "Welcome, Amina," he said with a warm smile that made her feel instantly at ease. "I'm Mr. Zubri." His voice was kind, yet carried a quiet authority that made her sit up straighter, curiosity and nerves mixing in her chest. She had never met anyone like him, someone who seemed both powerful and gentle at the same time. I don't understand," Amina stammered, her heart racing. Why all of this? Who are you?" Mr. Zubri motioned for her to sit, and she did, still clutching the envelope tightly in her hand. "Amina, I have been watching you for some time," he began. "Not in a strange way, but in a way that noticed your potential. Your intelligence, your determination, your kindness. I saw how hard you worked, even when your family didn't recognize your efforts. I wanted to give you opportunities, education, guidance, resources, without anyone standing in your way." Amina blinked, barely able to process his words. Her mind flashed back to mornings filled with quiet humiliation, birthdays that left her feeling invisible, and the countless times her dreams had been dismissed. And now, here was a man who had not only seen her, but believed in her. She felt her chest tighten, a mixture of disbelief, gratitude, and excitement making her stomach flutter. "You've been supporting me?" she whispered, voice shaking. All this time, and I didn't even know? Mr. Zubri nodded. Yes, I wanted you to grow without interference. I wanted you to succeed on your own terms, without anyone underestimating you or holding you back. You have the talent and the heart to achieve great things. I only wanted to make sure you had the chance you deserved. Tears pricked Amina's eyes, but she blinked them away, trying to stay composed. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before, being truly seen, truly valued for who she was. Her life, the one she had imagined in quiet moments of hope, suddenly seemed within reach. As she looked around the mansion again, imagining the possibilities ahead, her heart raced. A life of opportunity, respect, and freedom was now hers to claim. She could feel the weight of the past, her family's neglect, the small humiliations, lifting slightly, replaced by hope and determination. I don't know what to say, Amina finally managed, her voice soft but steady. Thank you for believing in me. Mr. Zubri smiled warmly. You don't need to thank me. The hard work is yours. I just gave you the chance to shine. And Amina, trust me, you are going to shine brighter than you've ever imagined. For the first time that day, Amina felt a deep sense of possibility. Her heart raced, not just from excitement, but from the realization that her life was about to change in ways she had only dreamed of. Today, she thought, marked the beginning of a future where she would finally be seen, valued, and unstoppable. Word of Amina's mysterious outing traveled faster than she expected. Her mother, curious and a little anxious, convinced the rest of the family to follow her to see what Amina was up to. They didn't think much of it. After all, Amina was just a girl who had always been quiet and unassuming. They expected a casual visit somewhere, maybe a small cafe or a friend's house. What they didn't expect was what awaited them at the mansion. When they arrived, the first thing they noticed was the grand driveway, the fountains, and the sprawling gardens. Amina stepped out of the car, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. She was wearing a beautifully tailored dress that made her glow with confidence and elegance. Her hair was perfectly styled, and the subtle, tasteful jewelry she wore highlighted her natural beauty. She walked toward the front doors with poise, holding her head high, and the sight left her mother frozen. Shock and disbelief flashed across her mother's face. The cheap $10 dress from that morning seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the undeniable presence of a young woman who radiated strength and sophistication. For the first time, her mother realized that Amina was not the quiet, overlooked girl she had always underestimated. Every smirk, every dismissive glance from the past came rushing back, and guilt began to weigh heavily on her. Her siblings stared in wide-eyed astonishment. They had never seen Amina like this, and they couldn't believe that the girl they had always ignored now seemed untouchable. Even the familiar neighbors and friends who had followed quietly were whispering in amazement, pointing out the stark contrast between the girl they once overlooked and the woman standing before. Amina's gaze met her mother's for a brief moment, calm and steady. She didn't smile, but there was a quiet confidence in her eyes, a silent declaration that things had changed. The power dynamic that had once placed her family in control was now reversed. Her mother, who had spent years underestimating her, now faced a daughter who had grown beyond her reach. Amina didn't need to say a word. Her presence, her elegance, and the mansion behind her told the story loud and clear. A pang of regret passed through her mother's chest, and she looked away, unable to meet her daughter's steady gaze. She had always thought she held the power, but the illusion had shattered. The realization was painful and immediate. Underestimating Amina had been a mistake, one that could not be undone by apologies or cheap gestures. Amina, meanwhile, walked past them without hesitation, letting them witness her transformation. Every step was measured, every movement radiating control and self-assurance. She didn't need to argue or explain. Her life, her achievements, and the support of her secret benefactor spoke louder than any words. The family's shock and the sudden flip in authority were undeniable. In that moment, Amina understood something powerful. Respect is earned, not given. She had endured humiliation, neglect, and indifference, yet here she stood, unshaken and radiant. Her mother's pale, guilty expression was a reminder of the past, but it also marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where Amina would finally be seen, valued, and unstoppable. Amina stood in the grand hall, her posture straight, her eyes calm and steady. Her mother, flustered and pale, tried to gather her thoughts, but the sight of her daughter, confident and radiant, left her momentarily speechless. The house, filled with elegance and quiet grandeur, seemed to echo Amina's presence, making her mother's earlier neglect feel even heavier. The air was thick with tension, every silent second amplifying the weight of years spent underestimating. Amina began to speak softly but firmly, each word deliberate. "Mom," she said, "I want you to see me clearly for once. Not the quiet girl you ignored, or the child you thought unimportant. I'm standing here today because I worked hard, even when no one believed in me. Every time I was mocked, every time I was overlooked, I carried it forward, not as weakness, but as determination. Her mother opened her mouth, perhaps to interrupt, but Amina held up her hand gently. "Please, let me finish," she said, and her voice carried a quiet authority that silenced everyone in the room. Amina continued, recounting moments from her life that had been dismissed, the small humiliations and ignored achievement. She spoke of birthdays spent feeling invisible, of her mother's subtle smirks, and the quiet discouragement she had endured. Yet she did not cry or yell. She spoke with clarity, poise, and dignity, making the words hit harder than anger ever could. "I want you to understand," Amina said, her gaze unwavering, "that your words and actions don't define me. I've changed my life, not because you ever supported me, but because I refuse to let your judgment limit me. Today I have opportunities, education, and people who believe in me, things I earned and things you never imagined giving me." Her mother's hands trembled slightly, and guilt washed across her face. She realized, painfully, that the daughter she had underestimated had surpassed every expectation she ever had. Amina's confidence was no longer fragile. It radiated from her in every measured step and calm word. Even her siblings watched, stunned, unable to speak as they took in the transformation of the girl they had always taken for. Amina's voice softened just a little, a mix of compassion and strength. "I'm not here to punish you or to hurt you," she said, "but I am here to show you that underestimating me came with consequences. I am no longer the child you could ignore. I am my own person now, and my life belongs to me." Her mother could only nod weakly, tears threatening to fall. Words failed her. For once, she had no power over Amina. The roles had reversed. Amina's independence, intelligence, and calm dignity left everyone present in awe. The confrontation wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was undeniable. Amina had taken control of her story, claiming respect and recognition that had been denied to her for years. In that quiet, charged moment, Amina proved something far greater than success. She proved resilient. She had turned humiliation into strength, neglect into determination, and silence into undeniable authority. Her mother, pale and speechless, finally understood that nothing could stop the woman Amina had been. Amina stood in the grand dining hall, smiling as the first guests arrived. Friends, teachers, and mentors, people who had quietly supported her and believed in her potential, came one by one, their faces lighting up with warmth and pride. The room, filled with soft music and gentle laughter, felt alive in a way Amina had never experienced at home. For the first time, she wasn't the girl who hid in corners or endured silent humiliation. She was the center of attention, not because anyone had forced it, but because she had earned it through hard work, resilience, and determination. She moved gracefully among her guests, her confidence natural and unshakable. Conversations flowed easily, and every laugh and compliment she received seemed to melt away the lingering memories of past embarrassment. Amina's heart swelled with gratitude for the people who had never doubted her, who had offered guidance and encouragement when her own family had turned away. She realized that this celebration wasn't just for her. It was a recognition of everyone who had quietly lifted her, who had seen her value when her family had ignored it. Meanwhile, her family lingered near the doorway, unsure of how to enter. Her mother's eyes flicked nervously between Amina and the well-dressed guests, realizing too late that her earlier neglect could not erase what Amina had accomplished. Her siblings looked on in silence, caught between pride and shame, unable to undo the years they had spent overlooking her. The mansion, the laughter, and the evident respect Amina commanded were constant reminders that her success could not be diminished by past cruelty. Amina approached her mother with a calm, measured smile. "I wanted you to see," she said gently, "that I can create my own happiness, build my own path, and surround myself with people who believe in me. This is what I've worked for, and I'm proud to share it with those who supported me along." Her mother looked down, guilt written clearly on her face, unable to respond. The words weren't meant to punish, but they carried undeniable weight, a reminder that Amina had grown far beyond the girl who had been mocked and ignored. As the evening went on, Amina laughed freely, danced lightly across the polished floors, and engaged with her guests with warmth and charm. Each moment was a quiet victory, a celebration of independence and self-worth. She saw the respect in the eyes of everyone present, a respect that her family had never shown her. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The girl who had been humiliated and underestimated was now a confident, capable woman, thriving on her own terms. By the end of the night, Amina paused to look around the room, her chest swelling with pride and gratitude. She realized that success was more than wealth or elegance. It was about standing tall despite the doubts, the cruelty, and the underestimation. Her family's past actions could not erase her achievements, and the celebration, filled with laughter and recognition, was proof that she had claimed her place in the world. For Amina, this turning point was more than a party. It was a declaration. She was seen, she was valued, and no one could ever diminish her light again. As the celebration wound down, Amina approached her mother with calm confidence. In her hands, she held a small, elegant box wrapped carefully. Her mother's eyes widened, unsure of what to expect. Amina smiled softly, not with mockery, but with quiet strength. "This is for you," she said. "Not to punish, but to remind you that I have grown, and my life is mine to shape. I forgive the past, but I will never be overlooked again." Her mother took the box with trembling hand, her face pale and full of guilt. She opened it slowly, revealing a simple but meaningful gift, a beautifully engraved plaque that read, "Strength, independence, and resilience." Amina's choice was deliberate. She was giving her mother a reminder of the values she had embodied, values her mother had failed to nurture, but could now see clearly in her daughter. It was both forgiveness and a lesson, a symbol of authority and triumph earned, not demanded. For a moment, the room was silent. Amina's family, who had once mocked her and dismissed her dreams, watched in stunned disbelief. They saw the woman she had become, confident, respected, and surrounded by people who valued her for who she truly was. No words could undo the years of neglect, and no gestures could diminish the success she had quietly built. The power had shifted completely. Amina turned gracefully, walking toward the grand doors of the mansion. Her posture was elegant, every step measured, every movement radiating calm assurance. She looked back once, meeting her mother's gaze, and in that look was the clear message. She had risen above cruelty and doubt, and nothing could hold her back again. Her mother remained frozen, pale and humbled, realizing the depth of her past mistakes and the impossibility of reversing the respect and achievements her daughter now commanded. Outside, the evening sky glowed softly, reflecting the quiet triumph within the mansion. Amina felt a sense of freedom and peace she had never known. She had endured humiliation, ignored potential, and countless doubts, yet she had turned it all into fuel for growth and success. She realized that true recognition, real power, and lasting respect were not given. They were earned, often when no one expected it. Her story ended not with revenge or anger, but with dignity, resilience, and the unmistakable authority of a woman who had claimed her place in the world. The lesson was clear. Underestimation and cruelty cannot stop talent and destiny. Life has a way of surprising those who are overlooked, and sometimes the most shocking victories come quietly through patience, determination, and unwavering self-belief. Amina walked into her future, leaving behind the past and everyone who had doubted her, stronger, wiser, and unstoppable.